Happy New Year. It's Wednesday, December 31st, 2025. You're watching DeProgram with Ted Rall and John Kiriakou. I'm Ted Rall. That's John Kiriakou.
Well,
Thank you so much for supporting us, liking us, sharing us throughout this year. And we're really looking forward to sharing 2026 with you starting on Friday. We will be taking tomorrow off for New Year's Day, but we're here Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Today is another one of those special 2 hour shows. So, what that means is that John and I will be taking your questions and talking about news and current events and anything else that comes up, and answering your questions in the Rumble feed and in the YouTube feed over the next hour from 9 to 10 Eastern. Then in the second hour, like we've been doing the last few days, we're going to take your calls through the Discord server, and producer Robbie West is going to come on and explain how that works. But basically, no need to get too into the room just yet because you'll be waiting around for about an hour. But we'll bring in Robbie in a few minutes to explain how that works. Also, we are going to be doing the 2 hour show on Friday, same exact format. But we anticipate returning to the usual format of a 1 hour show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday, January 5th, 2026. The TMI show will be back on the air with me and Manila Chan after that. Thank you so much for your generous support. Our watch hours are higher than ever. Our subscriptions are higher than ever. And that's all thanks to you guys. So it's
yes.
true that we're not making that much money, but we are moving in the right direction. We'll be getting back to shaking you guys down for help with Robbie in on Friday, but you're off the hook for the remainder of the month, which means today. All right, that's a lot of housekeeping. Major stories today: Israel is preventing 37 aid agencies from entering the Gaza Strip, which is, of course, a hellscape after 2+ years of combat there. Donald Trump bombed 7 countries this year. Can you name them all? We can. U.S. Border Patrol is now searching travelers' phones into the United States, including those of some American citizens. We'll talk about what, if anything, you can do if a Border Patrol agent asks you to open your phone or unlock your MacBook or anything like that. And finally, tonight at 12 o'clock midnight, in a subway station, Zohran Mamdani will become the new mayor of the city of New York. Let's see if there's any questions to get to, John, before we launch
Excellent.
into all that. Waterways, have a happy new year to you as well. Deprogram has been one of the best parts of my year and ours.
Ah,
Thank you, Ted, Ron,
thank you for
Robbie, and
that.
mystery producer. Yes, we'll talk about the mystery producer some other time. Mr. Outstraight, I think Milltown Cemetery in Northern Ireland would be an awesome spot for one of John's books. So much history there, including the attack on an actual funeral by Michael Stone.
I've been there. It is absolutely wonderful. I went with my buddy. I don't want to out him, but he has a relative there, one of the Irish martyrs, and terrific idea for a book because these cemetery books they're also broader history books and a history of the conflict, a history of the IRA based on that cemetery. Fantastic idea. Yeah, thanks for
Um,
that.
and lemon curd sandwich. What's going on with Iran? Well, we talked a little bit
That's
about it
that's
yesterday,
an
but let's
interesting
keep
question.
talking.
May I say real quickly about Iran? Um, Ayatollah Khamenei came out yesterday and said that he supported the protesters,
Yep.
which was a smart move politically, and told President Pezeshkian to do whatever he could to stabilize the currency. So Pezeshkian, of course, immediately blamed the parliament, the members of parliament for not coming up with a viable economic policy. But that tells me not only, of course, that the problem is legit. We know it's legit. They have 50% inflation this year. They're looking at 62 inflation next year. But they're worried that, there could be large scale in the streets, not because they were bombed by Israel or bombed by the United States, but because they can't get their economic act together.
Well, that's always what this kind of unrest is
Always.
about. So John, it's my impression, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the presidency is a relatively weak position
Yeah,
in Iran's system. It's
it
more
is.
symbolic.
It is. Ayatollah Khamenei is his title is Supreme Leader, which means he is the supreme leader. You can't do anything at all in the country without his express consent. Now they play that down, and Iranian friends of mine are gonna email me and yell at me that I'm overstating the case. I'm not overstating the case. His title is Supreme Leader for a reason. If you want to run for president, for example, you have to be cleared by a committee. If they don't like your politics, you don't get to be on the ballot. And even if they do decide you can be on the ballot, the supreme leader gets the final say so. Well, with economic policy, he's not in there making policy, but he
No.
approves of the policy that's finally made. And the buck has to stop somewhere with 50% inflation.
Yeah, so it's probably fair to say, is it fair to say that it's not a centralized like dictatorial system? It is
That
a
is correct.
representative system, but that there is a final authority.
That is correct. I will say, by all appearances, Ayatollah Khamenei appears to be popular. But with that said, the country has serious economic problems.
So, and also there, speaking of Iran, before we move on, there was a little bit of elucidation about comments that came out of Iran over the weekend. Basically, kind of like we suspected, when Iran said, "Oh, we're like basically at war with the West," what they're meaning is not that they want to go to war with the U.S., but they're just sort of saying like we feel like the West has declared war on us, and we're
Exactly.
feeling beleaguered.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, there's a big difference. They feel beleaguered. They feel that the West, mainly meaning the United States and Israel, have declared war on them.
Yeah, and
Not
they're
that
not
they are
wrong.
at war and are declaring war and treating this out of war. That's not what they said.
Yeah, they're not wrong. Okay, so Angela Falalala, does the CIA ever hire scientists or engineering firms directly for research and development?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. In fact, post 9/11, there are more contractors at the CIA than there are CIA employees. So, yes, if you have the
Um,
facility to do classified work, yeah, you're in. Sure. You'd
RSI
be,
718. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you'd be surprised at how many little tiny firms around the DC area, you go into their offices and they have a skiff. They have a vaulted space with,
Well,
CIA approved safes and everything. It's a real surprise.
RSI 718, is Israel's recognition of Somaliland an attempt to influence maritime traffic in and out of the Red Sea? Well, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but it's not like, we can't talk about it again. I mean, yeah, basically part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to add to something that you said yesterday too. You alluded to the troubles between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Well, yesterday the Saudis bombed um, a shipment of military supplies arriving in South Yemen. The
Mhm.
military supplies having been donated by the United Arab Emirates. So the governments of Saudi Arabia and the UAE are actively at war with each other, like literally at war with each other, despite the fact that they are among the two closest allies in the world. Can you imagine us bombing a shipment of Canadian arms that were sent somewhere, and then the Canadians responding by bombing our base? Because that's
Crazy.
what's happening now. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
Does this mean that they're no longer allies effectively?
No, because they're working together everywhere else where they have mutual interests. This is just one of those weird pissing matches between the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince of the UAE. The craziest thing.
With their big swigging dicks.
Yep.
F you so, thanks for the buck. What was the cannabis culture like in the Middle East? Don't they have killer hash?
Non-existent in my experience.
Yeah,
Like literally
the only
non-existent.
thing I remember, I've told this story, so was my father participated in the sale of the AWACS just to the Saudis, and he was expected to smoke hash, and got a letter from his boss authorizing him to smoke celebratory hash to close the deal. But that was a long time ago. That was the late
70s.
70s. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Um, Um, what's funny about cannabis culture is even in places where you would think it would be very different, it surprises you. Like in France, basically, it's very hard to get weed. It's like you would think it's such a liberal country and all that, but I mean, it's not impossible, but it feels more like in the United States in like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's just like
Yeah.
you have to really know someone. It's not like you can just get it. Langhorne Clemens, do you guys feel like terrorism, namely Islamic extremist terrorism, has kind of fallen out of fashion? It basically dominated the American conversation since 9/11, but quietly seems to have disappeared. Great question.
That's a great question. I think the answer is yes. Yeah, it's not what it
Why?
used to be. The world has become a more varied and in some ways even more dangerous place. And yeah, we still pound ISIS at every opportunity. But I don't know. Now we've got cyber threats. Now we've got China. We've got the war between Russia and Ukraine. We have domestic issues. Um, some Americans believe that immigration is akin to terrorism. So yeah, it's kind of different now.
Yeah. Was ISIS or was I mean was the war on terror successful in some ways? Is that why we're not seeing helicopter pilots put in cages and set on fire
Yeah,
and people being
yeah,
decapitated on
right.
video and stuff like that?
I think in many ways it was. Al Qaeda, for all intents and purposes, no longer exists. ISIS is a minuscule fraction of what it was just 10 years ago. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, we won.
So were critics like me wrong?
No, I think there was something to be said for the position of people like you and me. You and I have slightly different positions, but just because just because we're in the state that we're in right now doesn't mean that it's over. Because it's like a whack-a-mole. We're just in a lull right now, I believe, where we've whacked these moles, and right now they have traumatic brain injuries, but when they heal, they're going to pop back up again.
Historically, Islamic terror extremism comes and goes, right? I mean,
It does.
it's a long game. It's been hundreds of years. I mean, it's not
Yes,
even like
indeed.
so.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, so yeah, I think we have not seen the last of it, right? I mean, and
No.
also you need charismatic leaders, and
And
like
there
Bin
really aren't
Laden.
any right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a paucity of charismatic leaders in general, right? I mean, if you think about it,
Agreed.
Donald Trump is one of them, but
Yeah, he is a
there aren't very
charismatic
many
leader.
others.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, John, question from you from Nicholas Francos. Given the recent Saudi bombing of that, Yemen, Emirati shipment in Yemen, can you comment on the relationship of the GCC countries? Do they like each other? You lived there for quite a while. And what's the
That's a
GCC?
terrific question. The GCC is the Gulf Cooperation Council. It was created in 1982 by Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates. Um, some of them are very close to one another. Well, first of all, the Saudis are sort of the first among equals, right? They always have been because they're the biggest, they're the richest, so they're the first among equals. Um, the Saudis and the Bahrainis are so close that they're joined at the hip. But the Saudis hate the Qataris. The Saudis are close to the Emiratis, although, as we said just a minute ago, that's being strained right now. The Omanis are a little more aloof. Everybody loves the Omanis, but because they're so geographically isolated, they don't really take part in these petty fights between the other ones. And the Kuwaitis, everybody, like, I'll put it this way, everybody doesn't hate the Kuwaitis. The Kuwaitis just sort of do their own thing. They don't involve themselves in these petty arguments. But the real hatred is between the Saudis and the Qataris. So they'll do these summits every year. They'll have the GCC summit every year, and it moves each year. A different country hosts it. And they all get together and it's all kumbaya and how great it is. And they all smile for the cameras. Then they all go home and they're back to hating each other again.
Is there any country that's excluded?
Nope.
Really?
Yemen, briefly in the late 80s, like kind of sort of asked if maybe they could be members. And they were just sort of laughed out of the room and they never asked again, which is fine because 1991, the GCC was effectively at war with Yemen.
Okay. Let's see what else we got here before we move on. And do from longtime listener, we the Americans, we in scare quotes, didn't win the war on ISIS. ISIS was a US-backed counter gang. If anything, Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia defeated ISIS.
That is very overly simplistic.
That's what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, the U.S. certainly had a role in birthing ISIS, but
it was a failure of American policy that birthed ISIS. Yeah, I mean, it was the United States was responsible for creating ISIS in that there were atrocities taking place in American military prisons in Iraq. This was a reaction against those atrocities, and there was a determination among the initial founders of ISIS that Al-Qaeda wasn't radical enough. And because it wasn't radical enough, it wasn't able to defeat the United States in the Middle East. It's not like there were, a bunch of bad guys sitting around a conference room table in Langley or in the White House saying, hey, let's create something and we'll call it ISIS. That's just not real life. But the U.S. bombed the living shit out of ISIS in Iraq and in Syria. And yeah, the Russians also bombed ISIS. Others bombed ISIS. That doesn't mean that it was a U.S. policy, a U.S. creation. And thank God that the Russians were able to save us from this thing. That's just not the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my take also was that the U.S. had this, and Hillary Clinton had this unholy role financing and arming the Free Syrian Army and the al-Nusra Brigade, which part of them, it's actually very analogous to the U.S. role in helping to create Al-Qaeda, right? Like we supported the Mujahideen, some of whom morphed. It's like that, right? We supported
exactly.
And some of them morphed into these radicals.
That's why I hate when people say Osama bin Laden was a paid CIA agent. No, he wasn't. He came 6 years after the CIA pulled out of Afghanistan.
So let's talk about let's flip the script a little bit. How about we talk about the new boy mayor of New York City, 34 years old, Zohran Mamdani, self-described democratic socialist, small d, small s, is going to be at 12 midnight tonight. He's going to take the mayor's key to the abandoned subway station at City Hall, which is not used because it's at the end of a subway line that basically they had to close the station because the trains became longer. They're now 10 cars long, and back then they were 4. And so you didn't want to have one end of the train in one station while the other end was in another station. So certain stations throughout the system got closed. That was one of them. It's a beautiful, stained glass, gorgeous place, and it's been basically frozen in time for about 100 years. The mayor gets the key to that. It's called City Hall. And so when you take the number 6 local subway train downtown to its terminus at Brooklyn Bridge, if they will tell you this is the last stop on the train, get off the train, last stop. But if you ignore them and you stay on the train will then go do a loop and come back around. If you ever saw the Taking of Pelham 123, the 1970s version, there's a similar loop at the South Ferry Station back then. So it's the loop. So you go, it does a circle and comes back and heads back uptown. And you look out the window, you will see the City Hall station in the gloom. And it's not vandalized or anything. There's an abandoned station on the west side at 91st Street that is vandalized because people have walked down the tracks and graffitied it. But City Hall is too hard to get to. So it's a temple of transportation. And so anyway, the mayor is going to go down there and take the oath of office. And he's going to live at Gracie Mansion, mainly for security reasons.
Yeah.
He and his wife live in Queens, and they were worried that he couldn't get the security that he needed there. Obviously, he's a very controversial guy, more so than most mayors. So I guess there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, here's the thing. I've been watching Fox yesterday on the Five. The argument was that AOC is the leading contender. I laughed, to be the Democratic nominee for president in 2028. Nothing could be further from the truth.
So absurd.
But they did say something that is true, which is that Zohran Mamdani has captured the imagination of the Democratic Party, particularly younger voters. He points a way forward, and he's going to be watched very carefully. And if he fails, it's going to be a major setback for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. If he succeeds, it could set the stage for other mayoralties that are similar in other cities, places like San Francisco and LA, and Washington.
May I ask you a question? How much of a role are quality of life issues going to play in the success or failure of his term?
I think it's going to be massive. I worry that the people around him are kind of like overindulging in woke identity politics. For example, his transition team is all female. And I was like, who are you, Muammar Gaddafi, with your like all female guards? I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous. We will see. I mean, there's a lot of pressure around him to go in that direction. That would be a huge mistake. New Yorkers are always complaining about quality of life, but these days things are really bad because normally there's been like an ebb and flow in New York, in the New York economy. Like, for example, after the city went bankrupt in the 1970s, the city fell apart, right? I mean, crime went way up, graffiti exploded, everything got ugly, litter exploded. But during the Chud days, the rent, and it was the Lou Reed days, it was cheap. So there was, so it was exciting. There was clubbing, there was nightlife, there was the arts exploded. Artists could live in New York. There was that trade-off. Then under Rudy Giuliani, when the economy was expanding because of Wall Street, the city recovered economically, and it became a little more boring. The chain stores took over, but crime fell off a cliff and it became a much safer city. It became one of the safest cities in the country per capita, which is what matters. So, so the thing is, New Yorkers accepted that. They were like, it's a little boring, but it's safe. It's a little expensive, but it's safe. Now it's like, it's the worst of both worlds. It's really expensive. It's scuzzy. It's not as dangerous as the 70s. The statistics bear that out, but it feels disgusting. The subways have never been this squalid. The homeless situation is out of control. It's gross.
Totally agree.
New Yorkers are pissed, and they're like, "Why am I paying rent for this? Such high rent."
I go to New York with some frequency. I was there twice last week, 2 separate days last week, and well, let me back up. I started going to New York regularly in the early 1980s, right before Reagan cut the Amtrak subsidies. I remember the train ticket to New York was $12, right? $12 up, $12 back. And so my friends and I used to go up on weekends. We would stay at my friend Tom's house, hang out for the weekend. I would go in the summertime and hang out. And even after I got married, I'd take my wife up there for the weekend. It was a lot of fun. And then Giuliani became mayor. And as you say, there was stop and frisk, and it was more of a right-wing kind of police state sort of idea, but it was clean. He cleaned up the subways. He cleaned up the train stations, which was really noticeable. He cleaned up Times Square, and I was like, hey, this is nice. Now it's filthy again. They have a booming rat problem, just like Washington has this overwhelming freaking rat problem. You don't just see a rat, you see 500 rats when you go out. But there used to be, it seems to me, this happy medium where, as you just said, it's a police state, but it's really nice. Or we're totally free, but some homeless guy's going to push you in front of a subway train, and there are rats everywhere. So how far do you think Mamdani can go or might be willing to go to, emulate one style or the other?
Well, he's got a major problem on his hands, which is that he only has popular support. And I know that sounds
Right.
silly, but the people like him. I mean, he won by an overwhelming landslide, and expectations are high. But there's three loci of power in New York City, and he doesn't have any of them. There's the cops. Obviously,
Yeah.
he doesn't. They
Right.
don't like him.
They hate him.
There's the real estate interests. He
And
doesn't
they
have
hate him.
those. He's pissed them off, and then there's Wall Street.
Yeah.
Also, he doesn't have them. So, look, if the people around him are smart and he takes their advice, what he's going to do is basically realize I'm an outsider. My support comes entirely from the people, and I'm going to communicate directly with with the New Yorkers every single day. If I were him, I'd give a morning press conference every single day at 9 o'clock, and 7 days a week, holidays included. I would just be incredibly transparent, and I would also declare war on the moneyed interests. I think the real problem that the city faces more than anything else is it's broke. The city faced this migrant crisis that the Trump administration and then the governors of Florida and Texas unleashed upon it during the Biden years when they sent all these, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants and migrants up to New York City, and New York City processed them, and Mayor Eric Adams, for all of his legitimate flaws, really seriously was stuck with the bill for all that. The
Yeah.
city went massively into debt. It's carrying a multi-billion-dollar a year deficit, budget deficit now. So being broke is why like Giuliani wasn't broke. He had the
He
money
wasn't
pouring
broke.
in,
No, there was
so he
plenty of
could
Wall Street money coming in.
he could pave the highways and he could clean the subways and he could do all that. That's what the key is. It's about money. If I were him, I would slap a transaction tax on the New York Stock Exchange so that every time a share is traded on the stock exchange, the city of New York gets its piece. A lot of other cities with stock exchanges do this all over the world, and it solves all of their fiscal problems. But he's got to do something like that. He's going to have a very friendly city council, and
Yes.
that's going to help him a lot. He seems to be smart enough to be forging a collegial relationship with Governor Hochul. Governor Hochul holds the purse strings to New York City in many respects. So, he needs to maintain that relationship. Things were very sour between Adams and Hochul, and
Yeah.
things got sour between Adams and Biden, too. So, I mean, it's true that Adams was corrupt. It's also true that corruption, got prosecuted because he pissed off Biden by complaining about the migrant thing. So, it's complicated. I guess I mean, he's got a lot to do. It's going to be really hard. New Yorkers are in a bad fucking mood, and so I think the honeymoon is going to be short. New Yorkers will. He has like 3 to 6 months at most to come out of the gate with making a big impression, and he'd better have some good ideas. Right now, I'm really scared. Like, for example, the mayor has incredible control over the city schools, and one of the things that we're hearing is that he wants to get rid of the gifted and talented program, which has already been gutted. Well, if you want any white middle class parents to stay in New York City, you can't do that. It's like the one I know it's a completely racially segregated system, and like the gifted and talented program is pretty much all white. But
Yeah.
it's like okay, but New York, New York parents don't stick around because of that.
That's
Back
right.
when I had my kid, I left New York because of the schools and that situation. I was like, I didn't want my. I was like, I put too much work into my kid to have him stabbed. So like, it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish him all the best. I voted for him twice. I hope it works out, but I'm a little worried.
Wow. Wow, that's something.
Um, shall we talk about well, the board? Okay, so people who are traveling over from and returning to the United States, I'll be doing that over the in the next couple of weeks. I'll be leaving the country and coming back. Just going to Canada, but the people are reporting that that their phones and their laptops are being searched
Yes,
at a record rate by Border Patrol. The Border Patrol does have sweeping authority to question you and search you. They have a lot more authority to do that if you're not a U.S. citizen.
that's right.
As a U.S. citizen, you can basically say no. But John, has this happened to you? I'm just curious because I mean, obviously, I can imagine you'd be targeted more
No,
than the
actually,
average Joe.
I've expected it to happen multiple times, and for whatever reason, it has never happened. The Washington Post has reported on this several times too, where they offer up advice to Americans, not green card holders, not visitors, but American citizens about what you should do if this happens to you. If you're an American citizen, you can refuse to turn over. I'm sorry, you can refuse to give your password or your biometrics for them to go into your phone or your laptop without a warrant. But they have the right to keep it for a reasonable period of time.
Which could be months.
It absolutely could be months. And so the point of the article was they can make it hard on you, or you can just make the whole thing easy by giving it to them so they can download your data and yeah, you lose out. And yeah, this is a violation of your constitutional rights, but you get to take your laptop home or your phone home. They were interviewing in this article one American guy who turned over his phone. He was ordered to turn over his phone and would not give them the password.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept the phone for several days. It was like 4 days, and finally gave it back. They were never able to get into it. Another guy, they kept the phone for 6 weeks and only gave it back because the guy went to his congressman. And the congressman wrote a letter to whatever it was, Department of Homeland Security, and finally they turned it back over. The bottom line is they can be real dicks about this if they want to be. And there's almost nothing you can do to stop them. So what I'm going to start doing, I've ordered it. No, I shouldn't say I've ordered. I work with a company called Ivy Cyber, ivycyber.com. It's a privacy software company. And they're sending me a cell phone on a proprietary network. With the push of one button just zaps out everything on the phone. So when I travel overseas, I'll take this phone with me. And if ICE says, or whoever, Border Protection says, give me your phone, I'm going to say fine. And I zap out everything and I hand them my phone. And it's like trying to boot up a shoebox.
It's like, here you go. You wanted
That's
it.
what I'm going to do.
So
Yep.
what's effectively happening is, John, is that privacy is becoming a luxury good. Like
Yeah.
if you have no problem, I mean, now with an iPhone could easily cost over $1,000. So
Absolutely.
it's like a laptop can easily be over $3,000. So if you're like sort of like, okay, well, I can pick up a new phone and a new, I have everything stored in the cloud anyway. I'll just get a new phone and a new laptop. Fuck you, eat shit. Or I can go without my shit for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I have I have a desktop at home. I'm fine. Then you can do that. You have the luxury of maintaining your personal privacy rights. But if that's really a gross inconvenience and you're broke and you're poor and you can't do it, then they eat you alive. I mean, it's really
Gotcha.
disgusting.
They've gotcha. And another thing too, just a word to the wise. Let's say you travel, you come back, they demand your phone or your laptop, you turn it over. If they find anything that's a violation of the law, anything, even if it had nothing to do with your travel or whatever, they can prosecute you.
Sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
let's say they find out that you buy drugs, or let's say that you're talking to your accountant about how to cheat on your taxes or
Exactly.
anything. And the thing
Exactly.
is, It's like that famous quote attributed to Beria, the NKVD guy, right? You show me the man, I'll show you the crime. He may have actually said that.
I think he probably said it because God knows he believed it.
Yeah, no, it definitely, if the jackboot fits, wear it. Robbie, please come on, and I know we're ready for that ad, but it's already 9:37, and we need to make sure that the folks who want to call in the 10 o'clock hour know how to do that. So Robbie's feeling a little under the weather, so we really appreciate him being here for us today.
Yes, indeed.
Robbie, shoot away. Please explain how the call-in segment's going to work.
Yeah, no problem at all. Apologize for my voice. It's like I ate a box of sand, but I promise you I didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the Discord link in the chats. So what y'all will do is that you'll come into the Discord server. You are going up there towards the top of it. You are going to see a spot that says "Call in Office." And or call in voice chat, you're going to see a waiting room. There's already one person there waiting patiently.
Call in live office, right?
Yep,
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's called call in waiting. Yep, it's called the call in waiting room. So you just park right there. I keep track of who comes in first. I then drag you down. You will be able to ask your question to John and Ted, and then I'll put you back in the office. And once you do that, just peace out and go someplace else. That way I don't pull you in there twice by accident and get surprised with the second question that you may not be ready for. Please pay attention. Once I bring you over to the live chat, please unmute your microphone, but make sure that your streaming tab is muted. Otherwise, you're going to get some gnarly feedback. It's like someone kicking a drowning cat. So just please do that. That helps us just keep the show listenable.
Thanks, Robbie, and I'm ready for that ad when you're ready to put it up.
Sure.
So,
do you want me to read it, or you want me to just paste it for you?
Oh, in your voice, you better paste it. In your current state, you better paste it.
All right.
Yeah, with that sore throat. So yeah, that's a hand here. So anyway, so again, we'll be taking calls starting in 22 minutes at 10 o'clock AM Eastern time, and just make sure you control if on a Mac, you control click your tab. On a PC, right click your tab and just make sure the tab is muted. Otherwise, you're going to hear yourself talking back like 6 seconds later, and you're going to be like, wait, what? But wait, what? So you don't want that, because then that's really boring for us and for the listeners. All right, here we go. You've probably noticed Rumble is going fast and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience with Premium. You get ad-free viewing across the platform, no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. That's rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO. No ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. That's the deal. Okay, so yeah, I am also affiliated with IV Cyber, full disclosure, and I'm going to have to hit them up for one of those magic phones too.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you say, John, to people who say, like, if you're not doing anything illegal, you have nothing to worry about, and just, cooperate and just open your phone and be on your way?
That's exactly what Joseph Goebbels said in 1935. If you haven't done anything wrong, then don't worry about it. But this is all part of the incremental loss of our civil liberties, and we have to stand together to fight this government overreach. If every American tells Border Protection to go fuck themselves when they say, hand over your laptop and your cell phone and open them up so we can see what your life is like and see your innermost, personal information. Fuck you. I'm not going to give you my stuff. Take me to court. If you want to look at my stuff, go get a warrant and then you can look at it. Until then, no, I'm not helping you take away my civil liberties.
Amen.
Totally. Another thing I want to add to that, and that I couldn't agree more, is history. So even if you trust the U.S. government and the Trump administration as it currently stands, and everyone in the government, you think they're all great, which I'm not being sarcastic. Let's just say you love them.
Sure.
This will not be the government forever. And so at some point, we could end up with, a government you really don't like and that really doesn't like you. And they're going to inherit all of this data, all of this information. And that evil government that you don't like as much as this government could use it against you. And I'm reminded of, France in the 1920s and 30s. They had censuses that were very innocuous, and in that census data, they collected stuff like your religion. And when the Nazis invaded and the Vichy regime took over in 1940, they inherited all that census data. And they knew where every Jew in France lived. It was all on an index card. And they just literally, one of the first things they did when they started passing anti-Semitic laws was sort through the cards, put all the Jews in one stack so that when it was time for roundups, it was easy to find them. And so the French did learn that lesson, which is why they don't collect that data anymore in the census. So the next time the Germans come or whoever else, they can take over the country, but they're not going to have that data. You can still find out who's Jewish, but they're not going to make it easy for you. But here in the U.S., if you give them that data, you're making it easy for the oppressor government either of now or the oppressor government of the future. I think that's really important to remember.
Could I say something real quick, Ted? Because you touched on
Please.
something. Whenever someone says that the government should make a law or something, the pushback that I always give, and this is something I live by really forever, is would I give this power to my worst enemy? If the answer is no, I sure as hell don't want my friends to have it either, because my friends won't be in power forever either. That's it. I think that's just a great litmus test. And question for you about New York with the gifted students program. You mentioned it's mostly white kids. I imagine a lot of Asians there too, weren't there? It wasn't just all white, just pasty white dudes like me. So, I mean, I think that
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of Asians too, for sure. Like Bronx Science and God, what's the other? It's eluding me, but there's a Stuyvesant, which are the very competitive. New York City's a weird system for people who aren't familiar with it. Even within the public schools, there's basically 8 to 10 really competitive public schools that you have to take an exam to get into, and it's almost like getting into college. And those two that I mentioned are some of them, and those are very heavily skewed towards Asian students. Okay, so Will Kicker, thanks for the $5. Good morning. What news outlets and websites do you use to keep up with daily events?
Let me go over to I wake up in the morning, I go through the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, CNN, Fox, Associated Press, Politico, The Hill, the New York Post, Kathy Medini, Greek Reporter, The Guardian, the London Evening Standard, the Times of London, Raw Story, BBC, Dropsite News, Al Jazeera, Al Monitor, Electronic Intifada. If I have time, then I go to Consortium News, Real Clear Politics, Axios, Covert Action Magazine, and then whatever we send each other.
The vast majority of those for me too. I would add, you mentioned the Pittsburgh paper. I read the Dayton paper, and you might be like, well, why do that? But it's actually a good way it's not just a way to keep track of your hometown. It's also a way to sort of see what a generic American middle-brow newspaper is covering. Also a variety of French sources, Le Monde, Libération, a bunch of things like that. Anyway, the point is you get the idea. A whole shit ton. It's basically the days of being able to just read your morning and afternoon paper and watching the evening news and maybe Time or Newsweek, those days are over because news has become so unreliable and so spun that you have to get a lot of sources to sort of develop a matrix in your mind, like an algorithm of I noticed certain, things I noticed some things that are different here. The Guardian is far more reliable, for example, on American politics than it is reliable on British politics. So you want to see foreign sources as much as possible. What is Desert Fox? What is your guys' opinions on Austrian business cycle theory and the massive debt crisis in America? It is scary.
I don't know enough about it to say. I
Um,
apologize.
I think it's overstated, to be honest. Although the problem is, to me, it's like Malthusianism. You know, the theory that the world is overpopulated and it's all going to crash. You're never going to know that it was true until after the fact. And so, you know, Malthus was talking about this in the 1790s, and it's like, you know, he said, "Oh, by 1800, we're fucked." Well, obviously we weren't fucked. He was wrong. But, you know, Malthus could turn out to have been right just by 2035. We just don't know. Although that turned out not to be true because it looks like the population is going to fall, right? It's fascinating. By the year 2100, it's actually going to be a major problem. I mean, Elon Musk is not wrong about that.
That's a good point.
Um, Matina says Mamdani is starting on a bad day, and that carries throughout his term. Bad day to start. I predict failure. I don't know what she means by that, or he means by that. But
You know,
what's our?
I like
Go
to
ahead.
think that Mamdani is a very smart guy. And so he's going to, like, he knows what he can successfully implement and what he can't. He's not gonna just chase airy fairy dreams. I think people aren't giving the guy enough credit. And I'm willing to give him 2 or 3 years and see where things go.
I'll tell you my biggest concern here. He's 34, which means that he's a cusp kid. He's either an old Zoomer or a young millennial. Okay, now so I probably put too much faith into generational stereotypes. However, Gen Z are fully aware. They know what they don't know, and they tend to be respectful and interested in what older, more experienced people have to say. Millennials don't. Millennials
Yeah.
don't know what they don't know. They think that the world began with them, that they're the first generation to know about the internet, and they don't seek out experienced people. When millennials were running Twitter, it was a crazy statistic, but they had like 8,000 employees and not one over the age of 35. This was like 10 years ago. It's like ridiculous. So if he rolls millennial style, we're really screwed, or he's really screwed. But if he like seeks out keeps Brad Lander and people like that close, and and obviously without giving up the energy of youth and young advisors, but if he has a hodgepodge of people who are experienced, he's gonna he could succeed. I'm worried about that because it's like you can be smart. Obama was smart, but Obama didn't seem to have like the long view on things.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree with that. Yeah.
RSI. My fear with Mamdani is that he'll give into the establishment Democrats like other democratic socialists before him. That's true. That's what happened with
That is a good
AOC.
point. Yes.
Republicans seem more enamored by specific personalities. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
MT16. Wow, thanks for the $100.
Oh my gosh,
Hi
thank you.
from Mike in Nottingham, your friend John. It's just a
Thank
comment that
you.
what's happening in New York City is happening in big UK cities as well. The bins haven't been collected regularly in Birmingham since March. Happy New Year's, guys. I always think of the Sex
Wow.
Pistols song. She was a girl from Birmingham.
You
She
know,
just had an abortion. Anyway.
I was just in Birmingham in February. Man, imagine the rat problem they must be developing. I have a thing with rats. They freak me out. Ever since I was a little kid, I don't know why, but they're just vermin like that. I
Well,
can't.
they're horrifying. Yeah, they are. New York is actually making progress. I want to give outgoing Mayor Adams, today's his last day, some credit. Something I don't normally do because I think he was a fucking terrible mayor. But he introduced these like hard garbage cans that all the buildings have to use. It
Yeah.
used to be that like New York buildings just threw all their shit out in garbage bags on the street in giant piles. So the rats, of course, could get right in, and you'd see the rats like the bags moving as you walk down the street and stuff. But like now with hard, these cans seem to be making a difference. So, um,
Oh,
you know,
good. Good.
thanks for the $49 from Soden.
Thank
Good
you.
morning. Happy New Year to you and your families. John, Ted, can I respectfully make a request? Can we get an entire show about James Jesus Angleton? I went down the TikTok rabbit hole and I need some clarification on this shadowy figure.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, actually.
Maybe we can make that a premium episode.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
You know, he lived walking distance from my house. Interestingly enough, he was buried in Idaho. He was originally from Idaho. He hated his middle name. You know, I never knew whether to call him James Jesus Angleton or James Jesus Angleton because he wasn't Hispanic. But his mother, it turns out, had such a love of Mexican culture that she gave him the middle name Jesus, which he always hated
Really? Did he say why?
because he wasn't Hispanic. He was just a white guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny. I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like not making peace with your name is a young person's game. I mean, when you get older, you're just sort of like whatever. Were you okay with your name?
Yeah, because I have a very culturally Greek name. The firstborn boy is named after the father's father. The second born boy is named after the mother's father. And then the firstborn girl is named after the father's mother. The second-born girl is named after the mother's mother. So I'm John Kiriakou. My father was Chris John Kiriakou. My grandfather was John Chris Kiriakou, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Yeah. That is funny. Okay, yeah, we will do that. Soden, thanks for the $19. John Ted, the DEA was seizing currency from American travelers at the airport, and it was under $10,000. The federal judge just ruled against the government and said it was unethical and illegal.
It's theft, is what it is. They do this every once in a while under the guise of civil asset
forfeiture. Yeah.
Yeah. I've written about this a number of times. It is wrong, wrong, wrong. But this is one of those ways that everybody from the local cops to the federal government can pay for bonuses and perks for their employees. They just steal the money from you.
I mean, I always wonder when they do that. Let's say if either in that context or like in a drug raid or whatever, how much of that cash really makes its way to the evidence room anyway?
Yeah, none.
I would think.
No. There was a story in Prison Legal News magazine about a year ago. I wrote an article about it, about a local sheriff in Alabama who took so much money through civil asset forfeiture that he built himself a multi-million-dollar house on the Gulf of Mexico, just with other people's stolen money.
Disgusting.
And then the Supreme Court of Alabama allowed him to keep it.
And there's been many documented cases about police departments. Literally, they're hungry, they're thirsty to have like a fast, like cool, like Mustang or whatever car,
right,
like to add to their fleet. They like the Dodge Chargers and Challengers, and they wait for them to drive through their districts, and they pull people over and steal them.
Yes.
And there's not much you can do about it because it'll cost you more than the value of the car in legal fees to recover the car. Razmataz says that he or she is unable to use Discord or call in. How much of the Ukraine war is being dragged out by the Azov battalion because they're the guys who will be scapegoated at the end? I don't think that's it anymore. I think this is being dragged out by geopolitical interests, and specifically, it's big money behind defense. It's internal Ukrainian politics. It's Zelensky. It's the Europeans. It's Macron. I mean, I think it's beyond Azov at this point.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Thanks, Scott Britton, for the $100. Let's keep it going. Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you.
Wow. Philip Vecchio, thanks for the $5. Do you think the U.S. will see the breakup of the major political parties, maybe a new peace party? Would you talk with New York gubernatorial candidate Larry Sharpe? Sure. I would love that.
I would love that. I think we should all be advocating for that. For example, the Democrats need to split off into a peace party and to the neoliberal party that it is today. There are two parties right there. MAGA is already split because there are the real MAGA people and the neocons.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and ironically, then there could be alliances of convenience between the neocons and the neoliberals, and alliances of convenience between the MAGA people and the peace progressive left people. Ironically. It could end up just sort of switching. But the problem is, this is kind of like, the prisoner's dilemma, right? Who breaks up their party first and then gives the other party a major electoral advantage? I don't,
Yes.
and that's the rub.
Yes.
Guys, it's 4 more minutes before we do this. Just a reminder, we're going to be taking your calls in 3 minutes now at 10 o'clock AM Eastern Time. John and I will take your calls and about anything and everything you want. Please, you click the Discord, link that Robbie West has put into the chat, both on YouTube and on Rumble. Then you click the call-in waiting room, and then Robbie takes it all from there. Just a reminder, do unmute. Most importantly, unmute yourself so we can hear you. Otherwise, we're like, you're on the air. And we're like, you're on the air, you're on the air. And then also do mute your tab so you don't hear yourself back a few seconds later. John, Donald Trump bombed 7 countries in the last year: Somalia, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, Venezuela, Syria, and Nigeria. How does that square with his desire to get a Nobel Peace Prize?
I think he would argue that he initiated those bombings in the name of peace. This thing with Nigeria, I think, is a really good example. Donald Trump bombed whatever it was, Boko Haram or elements of Al-Qaeda in the, what do they call it now? Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Sahel or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he believes that he did it to save innocent Christians who are being slaughtered by Muslim extremist groups, which is the case. I would say that, if I were president, I think I probably would have provided aid to the Nigerian government, military aid to the Nigerian government, so that they could do it themselves. Although we used drones rather than troops, and so there were no casualties on our side. But I think that he believes these bombing attacks are in the name of peace.
Is he unique in that respect, or did previous presidents think something similar?
I think so. I think he's unique.
Political chemotherapy.
I think Barack Obama, for example, was a bloodthirsty maniac. I think he bombed other countries, lots and lots of other countries, and killed 10 times the number of people that George W. Bush killed, just because he was a true believer in neoliberalism,
Mm-hmm.
a neoliberal foreign policy. I think Trump is different in that respect. I mean, look at it this way. Trump bombed, what did you just say, 7 countries?
Yeah.
It could have been 17 countries, 27 countries by now. It would have been under Obama.
Do you think Do you think he's finally going to cut? Maybe not cut loose is probably too strong a word, but do you think he's finally going to distance himself from Bibi Netanyahu and Israel in the coming year?
No, I was hoping that he would, as recently as 2 or 3 days ago. But looking at the reception that Netanyahu got at Mar-a-Lago makes me think, no, nothing's going to change.
So Israel just blocked all these aid groups from entering Gaza. Why? What's the real reason?
I don't think anything's changed in Gaza. I think the Israelis are still at war and they want to starve everybody out. Just because the Western media is saying, oh, ceasefire, peace is at hand. No ceasefire. Palestinians are being killed every single day. It's just not being reported.
Well, that's 100% true. But I think there's another reason as well. These aid workers come from other countries, including the U.S. and Europe, and there's a danger they would go back and report on what they've witnessed in terms of atrocities, famine, mass graves, and so on. I think the Israelis are now, they're entering the cover-up mode.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's it.
They just can't have anyone go in there. Why are there not going to be any? And we're going to start taking calls. Last question to you, John. Why is there no consequences for Israel's actions here? Why does no one in the international community call it out and say, look, this is outrageous. People are starving to death. People are in desperate need of medical supplies. We need to rebuild. I mean, it's cold as shit right now. It's raining. People are sleeping outside in the mud in these tents. Like, why does nobody fucking care?
Because of the sheer power of the Israel lobby in the United States. And I want to give you a little anecdote. We have a listener who is an official in the Texas state legislature. He's been very kind to me in that he has asked several members of the Texas Senate to issue a proclamation for like John Kiriakou Day.
Nice.
That is not going to happen because Israeli lobbyists in the Texas state legislature don't like me. Remember, I was recently called a noted anti-Semite by the Israeli foreign minister's political director. Noted anti-Semite.
Disgusting.
Yeah. So even at the level of a state legislature, the Israeli lobby or the pro-Israel lobby will not allow the passage of a meaningless, act of kindness just because I don't toe the Israeli government line. So
I can't believe they still have that much power after what's happened in Gaza.
That much power. So it's not just at the federal government level. It's everywhere. It's all across America. It's every state legislature. It's going to be the New York City Council. It's everywhere. So no, I don't expect any change.
Fucking cancer.